Hey, what's going on, guys? This Saturday is UFC Vegas 83, Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction, starting off with the first fight of the night, Rayanne dos Santos versus Talita Alencar. Both of them making their UFC debut, both of them relatively inexperienced, and both of them kind of small for the weight class. Dos Santos' last fight was at 105 pounds, where she fought 5 rounds outside of the UFC. Alencar fought on Dana White's Contender Series a couple months ago. She won the first 2 rounds with a grappling, then gassed out in the 3rd round and got 10-8'd, so she fought to a draw. When I look at this matchup and I look at their skill sets, Dos Santos, I think, is a little bit better striker, but she has decent grappling, and Alencar, aggressive on the feet, but doesn't have very good striking, and then is really good on the ground and has a grappling advantage over Dos Santos, in my opinion. But what really kind of makes these two different in terms of their skill sets is stamina. Alencar does not have good stamina, where Dos Santos has gone 5 rounds before, so I trust her stamina, where Alencar is gassing out in a 3-round fight. So I think Dos Santos has grappling that's good enough to keep up with Alencar on the ground, and I think she has the better striking. So I'm going to go Dos Santos via decision. I'm going to say 29-28 decision. Maybe Alencar steals the first round with her grappling, takes her down, controls her. But as the fight goes on, Alencar, she just gets too tired. I don't trust her stamina. So I'm going Dos Santos to kind of outstrike her on the feet a little bit, be able to scramble back to her feet if she does get taken down, and having better cardio. So I'm going Dos Santos 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Tatsuro Taira versus Carlos Hernandez. Taira's 23 years old, 14-0, undefeated, and he's looked so impressive. He has so many submissions on his record. Carlos Hernandez coming off that win over Dennis Bondar, one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. Before that, lost the fight via submission to Allan Nascimento. But before that, had a decent win streak, came off of Dana White's Contender Series, beat Victor Altamirano, where he got taken down like once or twice in that fight, but was able to scramble back to his feet. Honestly, I think this is a closer fight than most people are going to think, because Carlos Hernandez has decent boxing. He's gritty in the clinch. He has decent takedown defense, but it's not all that great. But for me, Taira, his last fight, against Edgar Chairez, he got saved by the bell from that guillotine attempt. It was so tight. He was mounted, and the bell saved him. Otherwise, he would have got submitted in the 3rd round against Chairez. And his striking kind of got exposed in that fight. And his striking's never been that good, but he's so young. He's still improving. And that's why I'm going Tatsuro Taira via submission. I think he'll be able to get Carlos Hernandez to the ground. I think whether it's the 1st round or 2nd round, I think he'll be able to eventually get him to the ground. If he gets him to the ground with enough time on the clock, I think he'll be able to find a submission against Hernandez. So I'm going to go Tatsuro Taira 2nd round submission. I'm going to say rear naked choke. I think it's going to be competitive on the feet, but I think Taira going to get the fight to the ground, maybe in the 1st round, but not enough time to finish a submission or find a submission. 2nd round, gets him down early in the 2nd round, and eventually finds a rear naked choke. I just think his grappling's too good. His jiu-jitsu's too good. His transitions and the way he floats on top and the way he stops guys from scrambling back to their feet is incredible. And if you make a mistake scrambling back to your feet, you're going to end up getting guillotined against Taira. So I think Taira will get him down in a scramble, find the back, or maybe even move the mount, and then Hernandez ends up giving up the back, and Taira finds a rear naked choke in the 2nd round. Moving up on the card, we have Daniel Marcos versus Carlos Vera. This is a catchweight at 140 pounds. Carlos Vera, making his UFC debut, not fought the best competition, and I think he's taking it more on short notice than Marcos, because Marcos was supposed to fight in early November. Vera, I don't know where he came from. This fight got announced a couple days ago. So he looks all right. He's got decent striking. He's okay. He can be taken down and controlled a bit, but he's okay. But he's 36 years old, and Marcos is pretty much good everywhere. I mean, he has a win over Davy Grant, which that wasn't the greatest win in the world. Honestly, you can make a case that Davy Grant won that fight. The win before that absolutely destroyed Oliveira. So it's like Marcos sometimes is aggressive. Other times he's like too patient, like he was against Davy Grant. But honestly, when I'm looking at him and I see how well-rounded Marcos is, I see the fact that Marcos was supposed to fight a month ago, so my guess is he's probably in shape. And Vera's kind of taking this on short notice, making his UFC debut, just taking the opportunity at 36 years old against an undefeated 15-0 Marcos. I have to go Daniel Marcos. I can see him finishing via TKO, but I'm going to say 30-27 win for Daniel Marcos. I say he out-grapples him, outstrikes him. I think it'll be competitive on the feet. I think Vera will have some moments, but I think Marcos is too good on the feet, has good leg kicks, good hands, and I think he'll kind of press him. And I think if he has the option, if he finds a moment in time where he thinks Vera's starting to wilt and get tired, I think Marcos will go after a finish, because he's not going to be as worried of Vera as he was of Davy Grant, who's really good and has decent striking and has decent power. But I'm going Daniel Marcos via decision, because I don't trust, how patient he was in his last fight. I don't trust him to get a finish. Moving up on the card, we have Stephanie Egger versus Luana Santos. Now, This is a matchup where there's a massive age difference. Santos is 23, Edgar is 35. Edgar's, 2-2 in her last 4, lost to Irina Alexeyeva via submission, beat Aylin Perez via submission, lost to Mayra Bueno via submission. You have Luana Santos, who made her UFC debut in her last fight against Juliana Miller. She KO'd her, but Juliana Miller's probably the worst fighter on the roster. And then before that, she's fighting in LFA against 3-0, 4-1, and even has a loss to a girl who's 2-0. I don't trust Santos at all. And I know maybe she can take her down now, grapple her. I think Stephanie Egger's more athletic. I think she has better striking. I think she has decent grappling. So I'm going to go Stephanie Egger via decision. I think it could be a close fight. But Santos is striking. Even though she was very aggressive and powerful against Juliana Miller, fighting Juliana Miller is like fighting someone who's drunk, where Stephanie Egger actually has some athletic ability and some good movement. So I'm going to go Stephanie Egger to kind of outbox her and maybe get taken down a little bit. I'm going to say Stephanie Egger wins 29-28 decision, but that's going to be a close fight. I think it's going to be one of those fights that you get to the decision and you're like, oh, it could go either way. Moving up on the card, we have Steve Garcia versus Melquizael Costa. I broke this fight down last week on my prediction video because this fight was supposed to be on last week's card. I'm going Melquizael Costa via second round TKO. Steve Garcia gets clipped up too much on the feet. He's taken too much damage over the course of his UFC career. And I know he brutalized Chase Hooper, and that's kind of aged quite well. But against Norman Becca, even though he got the finish there, he was getting clipped up a little bit in that fight. He just leaves himself way too open. And Melquizael Costa beat up Austin Lingo in his last fight, which I know isn't the greatest win, but had a competitive fight against Thiago Moises. And also, he's 27 years old. I think he's faster. I think he has better combinations. He has good grappling. He was able to thwart some of the early takedown attempts from Thiago Moises, and he took that fight on short notice. So I think Melquizael Costa, unless he gets caught with a big shot by Steve Garcia, I think Melquizael Costa beats him up and finds a finish. I'm going Costa second round TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Hyun Sung Park versus Shannon Ross. Is this really a tough fight to pick? Shannon Ross has been absolutely brutalized in 4 out of his last 5 fights. I mean, he's never gotten a win in the UFC, and he's been finished in 4 out of his last 5 fights overall. His last win was 3 years ago. He's 34 years old. He's coming off like a 1-minute KO. It might not even been 1 minute. It might be 30 seconds against Jesus Aguilar. Meanwhile, Sung Park's 8-0, undefeated, coming off a bunch of submission wins, bunch of TKO wins. All of his last 5 fights are via finish. He's 28 years old. He's fast. He's got good striking. And, he's willing to brawl, so he could end up getting clipped by Shannon Ross. I don't think Shannon Ross is as bad as his record indicates. He's just gotten clipped up so many times and his chin just can't survive, but I don't think it'll survive against Sung Park. I think Park is going to be able to find that chin, and that's why I'm going Park via first round KO. I do not trust 34-year-old Shannon Ross, who, has been KO'd in 3 out of his last 4 fights, and been finished in 4 out of his last 5. I don't trust him at all. I have to go Sung Park. First round KO, catches him early and just absolutely sleeps him. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card, we have Kenan Song versus Kevin Jousset, I think is how you pronounce it. This is a matchup that honestly I was kind of going back and forth on. You have Jousset, who won against Kiefer Crosby in his last fight, where he made his debut at UFC, I believe it was 293. Got a submission win there, brutalized his leg, got clipped up with quite a few shots in that fight. Kenan Song is a little bit underrated. I feel like he got a win over Orlando Bedoya in his last fight. A lot of people picked against him there. Before that, lost to Ian Machado Gary, not a horrible loss to have. Lost to Max Griffin before that, not a horrible loss to have. Before that, doesn't really have any good solid wins. And honestly, Song has some decent striking. He dropped Ian Machado Gary. Kevin Jousset kind of keeps his, chin high, stands straight up. Heavy on his lead leg, but so is Kenan Song. And Jousset has really good leg kicks. So I see him really just battering the legs of Song. And I think after he batters the legs of Song, I think he's going to find some success with the hands. So I'm going to go Kevin Jousset, second round TKO. I don't necessarily trust this pick 100% because I think Song is better than a lot of people think. But, he's getting older. He's 33 years old. He's got a 3.5-inch reach disadvantage, a 2-inch height disadvantage. He's 33. He's lost 2 out of his last 3. Both of those he got finished in. And I think Jousset will be able to batter that lead leg of Kenan Song. And eventually Jousset will be able to find a finish in the second round. Moving up on the card, we have André Muniz versus Jung Park. This is actually a really easy fight to pick. André Muniz was massively overrated. massively overrated. He's coming off 2 losses. Lost to Paul Craig, got finished there. Lost to Brendan Allen, got finished there via submission. Before that, a win over Uriah Hall that wasn't even all that impressive. Before that, a win over Eric Anders. Before that, a win over Jacare Souza, where we ended up kind of hyping him up off of that win. But you look at the Iron Turtle on a 4-fight win streak, beat Albert Duraev, beat Dennis Tululin, beat Joseph Holmes, beat Eric Anders. None of those are great wins, but the way he did them were pretty impressive. It was pretty dominant wins, and he submitted Duraev, submitted Tululin, destroyed him on the ground with ground and pound. And Muniz is only good if he can find a submission. That's it. If he gets your back, he can find a rear naked choke. But other than that, he's not really good. He's not one of these guys who's really good off his back finding submissions. We saw that in his last 2 fights. And he's 33 years old. His striking isn't that good. He gasses out too early. He gassed out in the Paul Craig fight after winning early. So I just think Jung Park can take him down. He won't be worried about the submission threat because Jung Park has good submission threat himself, has good jiu-jitsu himself, and has nasty ground and pound. So I see this going down similar to the Paul Craig fight where Muniz does okay early, but then he starts to get tired. Jung Park dominates him on the ground a bit, lands some brutal ground and pound, and finds a finish. I'm going Jung Park, 2nd round ground and pound TKO. I just think Muniz was massively overrated for a while. Doesn't belong in the top 15. I don't even think he is in the top 15 anymore. And I think the Iron Turtle, while he's not great on the feet and he does get clipped, Muniz isn't great on the feet either. So it's not like a massive disadvantage there. So I'm going Jung Park, 2nd round ground and pound TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Nasrat Haqparast versus Jamie Mullarkey. This is an interesting fight. I think this is a good, solid main card fight. They both fought John McDessie recently. I know MMA math doesn't work, but I think Haqparast outboxed, John McDessie a lot better than Jamie Mullarkey did. Jamie Mullarkey took a lot of damage in that fight. Then one fight ago, Jamie Mullarkey got brutally KO'd. I think Mullarkey's going to have to grapple in this fight. Both guys are well-rounded. Both guys have decent striking, but I think Haqparast has way better boxing. Mullarkey's better kickboxing overall, just better kicks. But I just think Haqparast, I just think he'll be able to outbox him. I'm pretty confident in his striking ability. I'm pretty confident that he's working on his takedown defense. I'm pretty confident that he's getting better. He's pretty young. He's 28 years old, but so is Mullarkey. He's 29 years old, even though he looks like Eustace from Courage the Cowardly Dog. And, Mullarkey has a 2-inch reach and height advantage, but I think Nasrat Haqparast, his last fight, he looked really good against Landon Quinones. Had his leg battered, and I do worry about the leg kicks from Mullarkey, but I think Haqparast can go in there, outbox Mullarkey, and win a decision. I'm going to go Nasrat Haqparast 29-28 decision. I think maybe Mullarkey steals around, maybe he rocks Haqparast or hurts him to the legs because he's heavy on his lead leg because he's primarily boxing. But I think Haqparast will be doing more damage. Definitely, I will see Jamie Mullarkey's nose bloody, and I think Haqparast gets it done via decision. Moving up on the card, well, we had Sumudaerji versus Allan Nascimento, but that fight recently got canceled. Allan Nascimento's out of the fight. I was going to go Allan Nascimento via 1st round rear naked choke, but no sense in breaking down that fight because it got canceled. So moving up on the card, we have Anthony Smith versus Khalil Rountree Jr. This is a banger of a fight. Khalil Rountree was originally supposed to fight Azamat Murzakanov. That fight got canceled. That was supposed to happen last week. So we got moved to this week, and now Anthony Smith stepping in on short notice. This is a tough fight to pick because Khalil Rountree's on a good win streak, but it's not against the best competition. He beat Chris Daukaus in his last fight. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. Beat Dustin Jacoby. That was a close fight where he arguably could have lost and probably should have lost. Fight before that was against Carl Roberson. Absolutely destroyed him. Beat him like he owed him money. Then before that, Modestas Bukauskas. That was that nasty oblique kick. And then before that, a loss against Marcin Prachnio. Where Anthony Smith's older, been around for a while. I mean, has so many fights. 37-18. That's his overall record. Compared to Khalil Rountree, who's 12-5 overall. But Anthony Smith stepping in on short notice, lost 2 out of his last 3. He could have been on a 3-fight losing streak. His last fight against Ryan Spann was very close. And I didn't think it was all that great of a fight, to be quite honest. I don't think Anthony Smith looked that good. He looked like a dead body. There was a couple times where it looked like, oh, he's just going to lay there and get TKO'd. But then he would just move just a little bit and the ref wouldn't stop it. And then, before that, he got finished by Magomed Ankalaev, got destroyed there. And then when was his last good win? Honestly, maybe the Jimmy Crute win, which was 2.5 years ago at this point. So I think it could be Anthony Smith could kind of prove Khalil Rountree as a fraud, but I think Khalil Rountree's hitting his prime. I think he's better than ever. I think he's got vicious striking. He's got vicious Muay Thai. Anthony Smith does have good leg kicks, but Khalil Rountree has that Muay Thai stance where he's constantly lifting up that lead leg. So I think he can address the leg kicks that way. And I just think Anthony Smith's going to come in a little bit out of shape, And the fact that the number one quantity or quality that we always talk about with Anthony Smith is his toughness and his durability. You know what that says? That means you get the shit beat out of you quite often. So I just think Rountree, it's his time. It's his time to get a big step up in competition, time to get a win over a top 10 opponent. And I think he's going to beat Anthony Smith. I'm going to go Khalil Rountree second round TKO. I do wonder, though, because Khalil Rountree does take some shots. He even took some shots against Chris Daukaus. And Anthony Smith's a far better striker than Chris Daukaus. And Anthony Smith will be there. He will stay in the fight no matter what. But I don't think Rountree's going to get tired. I don't think Anthony Smith's some super technical striker that's going to be able to outbox Rountree and just destroy him on the feet. And I think Rountree could push him up against the fence, use some of that clinch work. And I think Khalil Rountree just has vicious striking, powerful striking. And I see him just wilting Anthony Smith in the second round. And if he ends up in a position that Johnny Walker was in, where Anthony Smith's kind of tired, on the ground, hurt badly, I think Khalil Rountree will be able to finish him off. Pause. And so I'm going Khalil Rountree second round TKO. Moving up the card to the main event, we have Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. This isn't the best bantamweight fight in the world, but it's a pretty solid matchup. Song Yadong, his only loss in his last 5 fights was against Corey Sandhagen. It was a decent showing where he got cut, ended up getting stopped due to doctor stoppage. And other than that, he's been on a decent streak. I mean, he beat up Casey Kenny, knocked out Julio Arce, KO'd Marlon Moraes, lost to Corey Sandhagen in a competitive fight, then recently KO'd Ricky Simone in the 5th round. And I think Song Yadong, he's only 26 years old. He's one of the guys that I look at and I'm like, this guy could be a future champ. He's so good everywhere. His striking is very fast. His combinations are crisp. He has nasty power. He has good takedown defense. He has good offensive wrestling as well. He even took Corey Sandhagen down in their fight and controlled him a little bit. He did get taken down, I think, like once or twice in the later rounds against Corey Sandhagen, but for the most part, it's not like Song Yadong is so bad with his grappling that he's getting taken down and dominated. Where Chris Gutierrez, you know, he's not that good. He beat Alatong Haley in his last fight, which was a month ago, so he's making a quick turnaround here. Before that, got out-grappled by Pedro Muniz and outstruck by Pedro Muniz, where he looked like a deer in the headlights. So I don't trust that Chris Gutierrez can get it done because, you know, his best win's Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar was a dead body. That was a little over a year ago. He brutally KO'd him, but how good is Frankie Edgar at that point in time? And then you look at the history of his fights, he's a really good striker, has amazing leg kicks, but he doesn't have great grappling. I think Song Yadong can beat him on the feet because I think Song Yadong has crisper boxing. I think Song Yadong also has decent kickboxing where he can address the leg kicks of Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez sometimes, especially when he's fighting a really good opponent, becomes very tentative. He was super tentative against Pedro Muniz. He got clipped up with quite a few shots against Pedro Muniz. And Song Yadong's just way more well-rounded than Chris Gutierrez. So unless Chris Gutierrez comes out here and is just a changed man and is super explosive and has nasty power and is willing to be very aggressive against Song Yadong, but even then, I don't see him. What's he going to flatline Song Yadong? I doubt that. Song Yadong, so good, so athletic, not particularly easy to hit either, and has fought very good competition. I really think Song Yadong is on a trajectory to be in a contenders fight very soon. Bare minimum, you know, he could be, you know, 1 fight, 2 fights away from a title shot, honestly. I mean, I know the division's pretty stacked, but that's how good Song Yadong is, and he just needs, you know, that staple, like, top 5 win. But with a win over Chris Gutierrez, especially if he completely outclasses him, he'll be there. So I think Song Yadong wins this fight. But how does he win it? I'm going to say he stops Chris Gutierrez. I think he's going to stop him in the later rounds. I think Song Yadong will win via 3rd round TKO. I think he clips Chris Gutierrez on the feet, probably with a hook. I mean, Song Yadong's so fast with his hands. I think he clips him, drops him, follows him to the ground, and finishes him off. Song Yadong's just too good. I really think this is an easy pick for a main event. I just don't see a way that Chris Gutierrez gets it done outside of some crazy flash KO where he just clips him on the chin, puts him down, and puts him to sleep early. But I don't think Chris Gutierrez can do that. I could see him chopping the legs a bit and maybe finding success in the later rounds. But I think even if Chris Gutierrez, let's say in some realm of possibility, Gutierrez is a better striker, Song Yadong can take him down for sure. I'm confident that Song Yadong can take him down. Song Yadong even had Corey Sandhagen's back, I think, in the 1st round. People forget that. So I could even see that, you know. So Song Yadong has many paths to victory where Chris Gutierrez has to find a KO shot on the feet. I don't think that's very likely. I'm going Song Yadong, 3rd round TKO. If not, I could see Song Yadong winning via a comfortable decision. But let me know what you guys think of my picks down in the comments. Who are you picking in the main event? Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.